Hello, beautiful friends, and welcome to another edition of Still the Fat Kid podcast. So I am here today with one of my good friends. What did we meet? Probably 4 months ago?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere around 4 or 5 months ago in Flowood when I was working up there a little bit, but become good friends since then. And I wanted to bring her on today to tell a little bit of her story, and I know you'll get some valuable lessons out of this. But her name is Anna Adams.
Hello.
She is a nurse. She competes in fitness.
Fitness.
Yes, so a very talented individual with an incredible story to tell. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I always love to start out the episodes like this. Mm-hmm. What is something you're grateful for?
My mama.
Your mama. Why your mama? I can feel you on that, but why your mama?
When it always comes down to it, social media nowadays and stuff, like a lot of people get that instant gratification with likes and this, that, and the other. But at the end of the day, my mama's my biggest fan. Mm-hmm. And she always wants me to do what's best for me. But she never wants me to settle, and she always wants me to grow. So, when I went to nursing school and became a nurse, she's like, okay, that's great. Go get your bachelor's. Do better. Do more. Always pushing. And so I got my bachelor's. And then she's like, okay, go get your master's. I was like, okay. So I'm going to get my master's. And I recently just got into nurse practitioner school through Walden, and I start in August. So
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so every time I was able to accomplish something, she would always say, okay, what's your next goal? What's your next goal? And I would constantly be thinking of things, well, why stop here? And so she's always been kind of like my biggest motivator, my biggest fan. So.
I love it, and I can feel you on it too. As you've probably seen, me and my mother are definitely kind of close. Okay, another fun little question. Mm-hmm. If you had to have a walkout song for life, not a competition song, not one to do your fitness routine to, but a walkout song for life, what would it be?
Oh, Lord. Wow. I really...
Come on, what's the first one that comes to mind?
First thing that comes to my head is, oh my God, no. See, I love this song. It's, now I can't even think of it, but it's a, one of my favorite songs, Dance. It's a country song.
I Hope You Dance?
I Hope You Dance. Yes, thank you. At the end of the day, just live life and just dance. Like, remember, mountains are grains of sand when it comes to the big picture, and just
nice. I like it. It just kind of reminds you to live life to its fullest.
Exactly.
'Cause that's kind of what the song's about. I do remember. I don't listen to country music, but I do know what song you're talking about. And basically, the gist of the song is, don't just live. Exactly. But actually experience and love life. And dance through life.
Yes.
I like it.
Which is perfect, because I'm that person that you see like randomly dancing in her car, randomly dancing in the grocery store.
That's actually how we met.
I know. I was dancing in the gym.
She was dancing in the gym. She noticed me dancing in the gym. We were both acting like idiots, and that's how we became friends.
Exactly.
Sometimes you got to let your inner nerd flag fly, and good things happen.
Yeah, mine was waving big time that day. Pretty bad.
Yeah, we were both kind of bouncing off the walls. Well, good. So you're making the transition from figure
into fitness.
Fitness.
Yes. I have always been that kid, like, growing up, that I was an only child. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't have anybody to play with. So I always was very easily entertained by entertaining myself, either with imagination or with music. And so I would just dance like an absolute, I would watch TV, I would see what they were doing, and I would imitate. Like, I could imitate anything. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how memorization and dancing and everything kind of came into it, in routines and gymnastics when I was little. Like, I did gymnastics when I was 7 and 8 years old. So, but that's it.
Yeah.
And eventually, that's back when I was like 4'11", and then, 2 years later I was 5'9". So I had a little too much body to flip, and I didn't have the strength for it. Well, now I've, been able to kind of transition my way into being able to take what I remember, what I see on TV, what I remember doing as a kid, and just keep practicing. And it's more me. I don't know how else to explain it.
Yeah.
It's just fitness just seems to fit me versus the standard. I mean, I love figure, and in fitness you do have to do the figure poses and stuff, and that's standard.
But you have to let a little your personality come out.
Exactly. You kind of get to see the me versus me just standing there.
Yeah.
You don't get to see my personality, just figure, but you definitely get to see my goofiness with my fitness routine. For
Absolutely, especially with the song, the outfit. Basically, she's got a Ninja Turtles theme to her fitness routine.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Which is awesome.
I'm a huge comic book dork. DC Comics, Marvel, all of it. I'm a big DC fan. I'm a big DC fan. I love DC.
I agree. So is competing something that you've always wanted to do? Like, when did you decide to first compete?
Literally, the way that it worked out is I had always been into fitness. I played volleyball for 15 years, played through college, came home, got married, had a very rough young marriage. I was very young. I was very naive to the ways of the world.
Yeah.
And to me, I just wanted to see the good in everybody. And that's what anybody wants to do.
Correct.
But the world isn't always nice. And I had to learn that the hard way. So I got divorced. And I was in the gym one day trying to get back into a routine of making myself feel better. I was anorexic. I was 5'9". I was 128 pounds. And I started lifting weights and trying to learn how to eat right again. And I had a bodybuilder friend of mine that walked up and was like, "You want to be a part of a fitness team?" I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
Like, literally, it was that quick. And he was like, "All right, well, there's a show in Hattiesburg. Come watch it." I said, "Okay." So I went down to Hattiesburg. It's called the Pine Belt Showdown. This is probably back in, 2012, 2013. I went, I watched the show. I fell in love with it. I said, I want to do that. And 5 months later, I was on stage at Battle on the Bluff, 2013. And that was my first show. I started out in bikini. Started out in bikini.
Yeah. Because most girls don't have the muscle mass to jump right into figure.
Yeah, most of the time. And over the course of learning myself, my body, how certain foods work with me, how they don't, things that I'm good at, things that I'm not good at, I transitioned from bikini for 3 years into figure for 2 years, and now I'm transitioning into fitness.
Nice.
So I kind of covered all my grounds.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a natural progression. So I want to go back a little bit, and because I think this would be beneficial for a lot of people out there. When you say that you came out of your divorce and was anorexic, what led you to turning to anorexia?
It wasn't that I turned to anorexia. It wasn't a choice.
Yeah.
It was abuse. When I first met my ex-husband, he was everything to me. And it was one of those times where I was 20 when I met him. I was 22 when we got married. I was absolutely head over heels in love. Like, nobody could have said anything that would have changed my mind. I was going to marry this man regardless. I mean, even the good Lord above tried to tell me not to when lightning literally struck our wedding venue the week before our wedding.
That might be a sign.
Should have been, but, I am, my father's daughter, so I'm extremely stubborn. And so I got married, and over the course of about the first 8 months of our marriage, I started to really actually see the controlling issues. And it got to the point to where, at the end of the day, where I went, what I did, how I dressed, how I wore my hair, what color my hair was. I've always been a blonde. I was made to dye it brown. I was a brunette. Wow. He didn't like blondes. He wanted me to be a brunette, so I had to be a brunette. He would always say, "Why are you eating that? You're going to get fat. Don't put that in your mouth. Don't do this. Don't do that." And so if he would cook, he was all about what he looked like. And he would meal prep, like sweet potatoes, brown rice, chicken. And he would cook for him. But I'd ask him, like, "Why don't you do that for me too?" He'd be like, "No, this is for me. You've got your stuff." But if I wanted to get something that I wanted, well, we can't afford that. Don't worry about that. So I was basically, I fended for myself. So I started dropping weight astronomically. But I was still constantly being told all the time, that I don't look the right part, or I was ugly, or I was stupid, or you don't need to do that. You're going to get dimples in the back of your legs and all this other stuff. So I had this constant, over the course of about 2.5 years, this constant negative feedback from somebody who I put so high on a pedestal that I started to lose who I was. I wanted to be everything that he wanted me to be versus being the person that I knew I can be. And so after we got divorced, I didn't have a self-identity. I didn't know who I was. And bodybuilding helped me learn that, and of course my mom was like, it's okay, be upset, but after you're done having your little pity party, you need to pick yourself up, dust yourself off and get to it.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I think a lot of people can identify with that for the simple reason of a lot of times we form our identity through what others think of ourselves. We form our identity according to what this person says about me, or how many likes I get on social media. That's how we form our identity. There's actually a theory called the looking glass self. And what it says is, I am not who I think I am. I am not who you think I am. I'm actually who I think you think I am. So I am what I think your opinion of me is.
Correct.
And that's how we form our identity, but it's so far from the truth.
Yes.
And when we do that, I've talked to so many people that really don't know who they are anymore. They've put all their identity on their kids, their spouse, their work. That's their identity. One of the saddest questions that I ask people, and I do this with all my clients, one of the first questions I ask a lot of my clients, if they're really struggling with this, is, what makes you happy? And of course their immediate answers is, my family, my job. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. What makes you happy? Like, as an individual, what makes you happy? And at least 7, if not 8 out of 10, cannot honestly answer that question. And I was that person. When I broke up with my fiance and we ended things, it took me, it's probably about 3 months depression and then 3 months of a hardcore self-evaluation process to really somewhat gain an identity back. And I'm still working on that because it's a never-ending process. But I probably went 2 years in my life without laughing just because I lost who I was and I lost that happiness.
Yeah.
And so you found bodybuilding and you found, this environment to start regaining yourself. What did you learn about yourself during that process?
Well, it's funny that you say, it took yourself, 3 months of this and 3 months of self-evaluation. It was a solid, probably, I've been divorced for going on 5 years now, and it was a solid 2 years before it finally dawned on me what I was doing with competitions. And my motivation for the first probably 2 years is, I'm going to prove everybody wrong. I'll prove everybody wrong. And one day, there's this one, my mom always jokes around. She's like, Anna, you're the most stubborn person I know, because I have never, ever set a goal that I did not reach. I haven't, but I make it realistic for me. And so I remember clear as day about 3 years ago, I said, you know what? At the time, my ex was, trying to say bad crap about me and all this other stuff. And I was just trying to distance myself as far as I could. But I was like, at the end of the day, I was like, I'm going to show them. I'm going to show them. And I was like, I'm going to go to this competition. I'm going to do bikini. I'm going to go to Atlanta where nobody knows me, and I'm going to win first place. I'm going to take home that tall trophy. I worked my butt off. And, at the time, it was great motivation. It gave me fire in my soul. That was like boom, 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 every workout. I never cheated on my meals, nothing. And it gave me this, great fire. I went to Atlanta. I won first place in my class. And I brought home that big trophy. And I remember coming home and just kind of going to the gym that following Monday and been like, okay, what now?
Yeah.
It was like it was gone. It was like, okay, what was the point? I wanted to prove so many people wrong, and it was literally at that point where I was like, you know what? Why am I doing this for somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
I need to be doing this for the right reasons, and I need to do it for me. And it was then that I was like, you know what? Let's do this based upon how good you think you can be. And that is actually about the same time that I decided to go back to school to get my bachelor's in nursing. And I said, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to work. And so I did. I worked 2 jobs. I went to school, and I competed. I was constantly doing something. But that constant work ethic was something that was instilled in me, again, from my mom.
Yeah.
And she was like, if you want something, you go after it. No one's going to give it to you. You're not entitled to anything, ever. You know,
Mm-hmm.
You're not even entitled to the air that you breathe. You know, that's a gift every day. So you have to earn it. And so that was the kind of the turning point of everything, that I was like, you know what, let me do this for the right reasons. And so I started helping others and kind of teaching about posing and teaching about the sport. And I started giving back. And, Arnold has 5 rules of bodybuilding. One of them is which, at the very end, he says, give something back.
Mm-hmm.
And he's right. And I started to actually notice and see there was no greater fulfillment for me than to see somebody else succeed because you gave them an encouraging word or positive reinforcement, or looked at them and said, hey, if you want to change, get off your butt and change. And they kind of would be taken back, and then they would go and do it, and then they would reach their goals. And that became very fulfilling to me. And so that's when I started, working with the NPC and working with other athletes and other bodybuilders, and just trying to give back to a sport that truly, I thought at one point, truly saved my life and helped me learn to form my own identity.
Yeah.
Because at that turning point, I was like, okay, this is me. This is who I am. This is why I'm doing it. I'm doing it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Thomas, I love Eric Thomas, a fabulous, outstanding motivational speaker.
Hip-hop preacher.
He always says, what's your why?
Yeah.
My why is me. I don't need any other reason to do something other than I want to.
Mm-hmm.
And I can.
So let me ask you this, because this was, you brought this up about you've never not accomplished a goal.
Yes.
So I want to see how you feel about this. 'Cause this is what I went through.
Mm-hmm.
When I went through my bad breakup, and I was struggling with depression and all the other issues associated with losing your identity. To me, the thing that got me the most depressed, and the thing that got me the most down, was, like you, before that point, I had always accomplished every goal I'd set out to. Mm-hmm. I want to play college football, done. I wanted to excel, I was an All-American, done. I want to get my master's, done. Every time I'd ever set my mind to something, I accomplished it. Yeah. But in my relationship, I set a goal, in my head, we were getting married. We were engaged. We were, I think, a month and a half from the wedding. And when it didn't work out, I felt like a failure. And I felt like I had done something wrong and I wasn't good enough. And it was the first time in my life I really had to accept failure and deal with it at a big, of course you fail at little stuff all the time, but this is like a big goal, a big something in your life that the whole world knows about, and it didn't work. That's what hurt me the most. And you can call that selfish, you can call it whatever you want, but that's what really got me into the deep depression I went into, was I just felt worthless and like a failure. Is that one of the things that through bodybuilding you were able to overcome?
Yes and no, because everybody failure is a part of life. Mm-hmm. But failure is a part of the learning process and growing process. If you don't fail, you don't learn. Okay? I have done, what did we counted up earlier, 16 shows or something like that in the last 5 years. I've done quite a few. But I didn't win first place at every one of those shows. There were 3 of those shows I didn't even place at all. And all it was just okay, take it, learn from it, get constructive criticism, and move on from it. there's always opportunity to learn. Like I said, the 5 rules from Arnold, one of them is don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest ones, is that failure is a part of life. Greg Plitt says, rest in peace.
Seriously.
Greg Plitt said, a winner and a loser have both failed. It's just the winner gets back up.
Yeah.
And that is what, I listen to those YouTube motivationals. I mean, it helped me get through my divorce. It helped me get through all of that. And it was a long process. It wasn't like, oh, watch a video. Oh, I'm cured. I'm fine. It's not like that. Like, it's a slow, steady process, but it's those tiny, small little accomplishments that you have to make within your head. Now, make it realistic, No, okay, small baby steps. I'm going to do this. You have your short-term goals, and then you have your long-term goals. My long-term goal is that I wanted to, move to Florida and be self-sufficient and independent. My whole family is in Florida, aside from my mother, who was in Panama City and now is in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And, but the rest of my family is in Fort Myers, Fort Walton, Naples, Dayton, all over Florida. And, it's just kind of where I want to be, back with my family. But, I have things that I have to do before I get there, and I have to accept that, and, it's going to take time. But, failure is just a part of the recipe for success. Yeah. That's just the way that it is. And if you don't fail, you don't learn. Somebody who never fails will never learn to grow.
I agree 100%. And I think where most people miss the boat on that is the post-failure learning process.
Yes.
It's a hard process to say, okay, I failed, and what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? Not what did so-and-so do to me? What happened to me? Like, why did this person do this? Or why did the economy do this? Or whatever excuse you can come up with. What did I do wrong? And that's a hard question to ask, because a lot of people don't accept personal accountability anymore. And it's always someone else's fault.
Always.
When at the end of the day, no, actually it's your fault. And it's the choices you made that led you down to that decision. Yeah, there are external forces that we can't control.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, we're still presented with a choice. And, for like me and you, we probably stayed in our relationships a lot longer than we should have.
Yes, absolutely.
We should have said, okay, red flag, this is not right, I need to go the other direction.
Yeah.
But we made the choice to try to make it work.
Exactly.
And admitting to yourself and getting comfortable with the fact that, okay, I made the choice to be there. I made the choice to pursue that failure and stay in it.
Yes.
That's something, it's hard for a lot of people to do. It's hard for a lot of people to have that personal accountability of saying, this is all on me.
I made the choice to not stand up for myself, which is something that I do regret, but it is something, again, with the learning curve. I learned that at the end of the day, my mother put it wonderfully. She said, I don't care how many letters you have at the end of your name. We all came out of a uterus, so I expect a little bit of respect. And I've actually said that to a doctor before. Yeah. And he looked at me and he was just like, I like you. And so from that point on, I was just like, you know what? I understand. Like, I will give anybody respect. Respect, yes, is sometimes is granted to certain people more than they are to others, and it's not always right. I say yes, ma'am, to my 19-month-old niece. Yeah. So I treat everybody with the same amount of respect. I will never, specifically with the intent to be rude to somebody, I will never do it on purpose, ever. If I am, it is never intentional. I will never say anything mean to somebody, because I will never call anybody. You will never hear me call somebody a name unless I'm just joking around with you. Be like, oh my gosh, you're such a geek. Like that, because I was called names on a daily basis. I was called terrible things. I had somebody do something to me with the intent to hurt me, and I know what that feels like. Yeah. I could never instill that into somebody else. But I have to take responsibility for the fact that I'm the one that stayed in there. But even though, yes, my intentions were good, but I had to see from the outside looking in that I was losing who I was, trying to be somebody that I wasn't.
Yeah. And that's one of the hardest things, because I've been asked that by clients before, and it's one of those questions I never really have a solid answer for. It's, when is enough enough? Mm-hmm. Like, when, if you're going down a negative road, where's the point where you stop trying versus try to make things better? Where do you draw that line? And I never have a definitive answer. I said, the only thing that I can tell you is that's something only you can figure out.
Yes.
Because if you let outside people influence that decision, you can always say, oh, well, they told me to stay in it, or they told me to do this. No, it's something you got to figure out. That way, if it does get better, if it does get worse, it's your choice.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've had some people ask me that, and I never have a clear answer for them, because there is no clear answer.
Because every situation is different.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was, and I've actually had this with a couple of relationships since then, but when my health takes a back seat.
Yeah.
When my health takes a back seat to you and you as a priority, that's when I'm like, all right, time out. We got to reevaluate some stuff. Because, like, I was recently diagnosed last December with asthma.
I'm glad you bring this up, because I was going to anyway.
I was diagnosed with asthma, and as you can tell, I had a flare. Anytime there's, like, a shift in the weather, I'll be totally fine, and my asthma will flare up. So it's just why I sound like a 13-year-old boy. Sorry. But, I mean, that it happened with my ex-husband. You know, he constantly was downing me, and like health-wise, nutrition-wise, I was getting sicker and sicker, and I was always sick, like always sick. Could never get better, and it's because my immune system was crap because I was so underweight.
Yeah.
And so, and you know, recently with my recent ex-boyfriend, you know, kind of the same thing. My asthma took a back seat to his comfort zone, and I just was just like, you know what, I have to be important too. And so my biggest thing for me, and what I have learned from myself, is that when my health takes a back seat, it's time out.
And I think it's just as much mental health as it is physical health.
Yes,
if
absolutely.
not more.
Yes.
It's just mental health is a little harder to monitor, especially in a relationship, because emotions are involved. Anytime, I think Tony Robbins said, when love comes into the equation, throw out all logical thinking.
Yep.
You know, because those emotions come in, and yeah, you don't think logically at that point, because you're driven by this instead of that.
Yes.
And it's hard. But I think that's another thing too, that just in a relationship dynamic, I've noticed sometimes, you know, you have to have that outside circle of friends to pull you back, because you get so deep into the woods, you can't see anything else but what's right there.
Yeah.
And you just think that's the way it is. This is my world. I have to deal with it. These are my problems. But sometimes being able to pull back, and sometimes it's friends that help you do that, or just, you know, through mindfulness, you're able to personally step back and take an outside perspective on things. But it's definitely hard to do when emotions are involved, to step back and take a unbiased look at what's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So, all right, so let me ask you this. When you started getting into bodybuilding, and you started like this self-improvement phase, what were some things you did? Because obviously the bodybuilding was going to help you physically.
Yeah.
But what were some things you did mentally to help you? Like, what were some things you kind of plugged into, some things that you started learning or getting into that helped you with the mental side of all of it?
I started watching a lot of like bodybuilding motivationals, but one person in particular that I truly admire was Eric Thomas. And I started watching some of his videos that had nothing to do with bodybuilding, but just his mind frame about success and about how, you know, if you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful.
Yeah.
And it was like, I started improving that in, let's see how far this will take me. How good can I get at this? But at the same time, I didn't want bodybuilding to be everything that I was. I didn't want people to go, oh, that's Anna, she's just a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want that stigma. And so I, you know, obviously I went back to school. And I was like, all right, I want to go back to school. And it's so funny. My mom jokes with me all the time because she was like, man, you made such good grades when you went back to school for your bachelor's. I go, yeah, when you're paying for it, you tend to want to do really well. So, and I decided that I was like, all right, I want above a 3.5, 3.6 GPA. And so I would maneuver everything that I was doing around school. I would pick one thing that I was doing as top priority, and everything just kind of, tapered down underneath it. Mm-hmm. But I would make sure that I devoted just as much time to one as I did to the others.
Yeah.
That way, I was never consumed with doing cardio or consumed with meal prep or consumed with studying. I tried to make a balance of everything. And, even with relationships, whether they were doing well, not doing well, going on a date, kind of hard to go on a date when you're in prep. But I managed, there's a way to balance life. And that was the hardest mental thing, was learning to balance everything and not doing what I did the first 2 years that I competed in, kind of shutting off all of my friends and family and just I have to do this, this, and this. You have to find balance, because with balance comes happiness. When you're sitting there prepping the whole time and constantly in a bad mood and shutting everybody off, you're not happy.
No.
You're not. So, it was a learning curve. And, but those motivational videos, with Eric Thomas and Greg Plitt, were always about, don't be afraid to be the hardest working person in the room. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it with 110%. Otherwise, don't do it.
Yeah.
Because that makes life meaningless. Why do something just to do it? Mm-hmm. No, if you're going to do it with a purpose. So that's why everything that I do now, it's there's a purpose behind it. If I ask somebody a question, there's a purpose behind it. I don't ask questions just to ask a question.
Yeah.
And so, but I want to learn and I want to keep growing. And that's the biggest thing for me, as I'm such a nerd. It's so bad. I'm the girl with their hair in a ponytail at Cups with 2 laptops up, with reading glasses, with her books out. I'm a nerd, but I love school. Mm-hmm. And so school was a very big part of mentally kind of helping grow as a person, and as a nurse also, problem solving and stuff like that, and delegations. And I could take that and work problem solving into athletes and into, meal preps and doing all of my own stuff, because I actually started about a year and a half ago coaching myself.
Yeah.
And learning, instead of doing what somebody else told you to do, because they told you to do it, learn the process yourself. And so that kind of also mentally kind of was a challenge for me. So it was, again, another learning opportunity that I took on. So
I think this will be valuable for a lot of people out there, because I think you'll be at a unique perspective to answer this question. So from the outside looking in, people that aren't in the competition world, one thing that, they always kind of don't see clearly is you see these competitors on stage, and they're supposed to be the epitome of health. When in actuality, not so much.
Not so much.
When you're on stage, you're near death.
You're dehydrated, you're, carb loaded up, you're eating.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You can eat gummy bears and Pop-Tarts and all that stuff.
It's
at the same point, dehydrating. It's just, it's crazy what competitors have to do to get on stage.
Yeah.
And we could definitely go into hours of that on another show.
Oh.
But my question is, how does someone that's trying to compete on that level maintain their health? Because at the end of the day, when, both of us enjoy giving back. And that's what it's about. It's about giving back and helping others. And we do live in the fattest state in the country.
Yes, we do.
So, people look at a lot of people that are unhealthy looking competitors, and of course they immediately judge them. But at the same time, you do want to be an advocate for health.
Yeah.
So how do you find that balance between competing and being healthy?
It's a transition process for me. Again, learning curve. I went and to try and do it about 3 years ago, I went to Junior Nationals in Chicago to do in bikini at a national level show, just to see what it was like. And after I got off stage for 4 days straight in Chicago, eating whatever I wanted, however I wanted, whether it be 15 minutes or 2 hours later, and I had a really bad rebound effect. And I didn't realize the chemistry and the biology behind certain foods and what you do, and water weight and water, retention and all this other stuff. So much so that I almost gave myself like heart problems.
Yeah.
And when you gain that much weight and then lose it real quick and gain it and lose it, that puts strain on your body, on your lungs, for starters.
Miss Asthma, you might not want to do that.
And on your heart. And so I had got up to, I think, like 100, almost 180 pounds, which is huge for me, but it was all water. I was so bloated. I was like...
And probably inflamed.
Yes, very much so. And, my ankles were like this big around.
Yeah.
It was terrible. And so it was like, okay, and I had to work so hard to get all that off just to start the next following season. So I told myself, I said, I am never going to do this again. And so it was a transitional process. Like, I am not a sweets person. Like, I don't crave sweets unless I'm in prep.
Unless you're depriving yourself of them.
Yes. So, like, Christmas and stuff like that, like, y'all can have all the cakes and stuff that you want to. That's fine. Give me the green bean casserole.
I'll take the cakes.
You take the cakes. I'll take the green bean casserole. Like, I like good, like, home-style food. You put me 2 months out or a month out from prep, and I see a cupcake, and I'm like...
Game on.
That's all I want. Like, right now, I'm craving donuts like nobody's business. But it was just a learning curve. Like, okay, it's okay while you're doing these things to, like, give yourself little treats here and there. But you've got to learn portion control, and you've got to learn self-control.
Yes.
And that's the biggest thing, is that, I can sit here, but another time that you can sit there and learn is, okay, recipes. You can learn how to make awesome omelets with seasonings or protein pancakes with sugar-free syrup. I mean, and they're just as healthy for you, if not better, but you can still have that sweet tooth, craving done.
Yeah.
Or, you can make cupcakes with Quest protein powder or something like that. Like, you learn. And when I went to nationals and I had that huge rebound, I was like, I'm never going to do this again. So I had to learn, okay, how do I transition in and how do I transition out? And it's a slow transition, but it's a lifestyle change. That's what people don't realize, is that the sport of bodybuilding isn't a sport in season like football players that work in the NFL. They are never out of season. They're constantly training.
Yep.
They're constantly working. And it's the same thing with us. There is no off season. Like, we might lax off on our diet, but we're still going to the gym. I'm still at the gym at Christmas morning at 4 a.m. doing cardio.
Dedicated.
Some people call it obsession. Some people call it crazy. Some people call it dedication. Whatever your word is, as long as you're being smart about it, being healthy, and keeping a balance of life, no one can really say anything to you.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, do good, never intend to hurt somebody else. Those are two things that you always need to live by. Always try to do the right thing, never do anything with the intent to hurt. And learn. Just continue to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, so many people struggle with that post-rebound.
Yes.
I've talked to numerous coaches, and, they've got competitors gain 30, 40 pounds after a competition, and then they got to work so hard to get back in shape, where if they would have taken that cheat month and backed it down to a cheat day, or even, like, had a cheat meal a week versus combining it all for a month, it's just, but a lot of times, what I find is people that compete aren't competing for the right reasons.
Correct.
Like when you first said you stepped on stage.
Yeah.
They compete to fill a void, fill an insecurity, versus, for that personal competition factor of, I want to get better.
Yeah.
And what they find is they work so hard for so long, they compete. They've got 48 hours of happiness, and then that dopamine is gone after the competition. You go back to reality, and what did you really gain from that? Because they don't see how much hard work they put in. They didn't learn all these lessons along the way. They just did it for the outcome of showing everybody what great physique they could have or proving people wrong, and it never really solved the problems they were dealing with.
Exactly.
So they get this dopamine surge and it goes away, and then they turn to food for comfort and start filling those voids. And it's just like this endless cycle that, that's one of my big things is don't put a Band-Aid on a problem.
No.
Actually fix the problem.
Fix the problem.
And quit searching for these quick, immediate gratification things to suppress and fill those voids. No, actually deal with those voids. I was speaking with somebody yesterday, and I was helping her out with some things. And I was like, in our society, we talk a lot about staying positive, always be positive, get your head out of the gutter, all this. But I'm like, sometimes it's good to be in those emotional hurt places because only, a lot of times when you have to make a life-changing decision, you can only make those life-changing decisions when that deep hurt causes you to actually change.
Yeah.
Because if you're not actually like hurt and you're not emotional about the decision, you're not really going to change. You might change some things you're doing, but in order to have a full lifestyle change, it's not going to happen unless it's like emotionally driven. So I was, so I was telling her, I'm like, you live so much in the positive, and every time you have a negative thought, you run away from it.
Yes.
Which is a good thing to do for the most part, but sometimes if you have a reoccurring negative thought, you need to spend some time in that thought and actually deal with what's causing that. Because if it's something that's reoccurring and something that keeps coming up and up and up, there's probably something a little deeper there that's actually going on that you actually need to deal with instead of just, okay, now I need to go watch something positive, or I need to go watch a motivational video so I can forget about this.
Yeah.
No, let's actually deal with the problem. And I'm glad you brought up like the motivational videos too, because what you've done, it's what I try to get people to understand. You started with your why, which was me. Your why is yourself for your own happiness. And that's your internal fire. That's your motivator. Now, yes. But, sometimes that internal motivation, that flame starts to flicker out a little bit.
Yeah, it does.
And it just needs a little gas on it to reignite it. And I think that's the place where those motivational videos come in. Because, I watch them too.
Yeah.
I listen to podcasts. I watch YouTube videos. I listen to all that kind of stuff. And for me, it's, some people depend 100% on that.
Yeah, and that's not, it's not healthy because it's it's just like they say, like you have to find your own reason. It can't be this person's reason, or that person's reason can't be yours. Like you have to have your own reason why. And people lose sight of that. And it can't always, what people don't realize is that when they find their why, most of the time look for a negative cause for a why versus a positive. Like, my why is to prove you wrong. Well, that's like a negative feedback. Because prove you wrong, almost like I want to shove something in your face, which in turn is negativity. That's boastfulness. That's pride. Which, yes, have pride in your work, but don't have pride and an overabundance of ego. Okay? You got to outgrow your ego.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when you find something more internal that is more satisfying, you'll realize that once you find the right reasons why that you're doing something, you will actually have more of a enlightening moment once you reach those goals. Like you will feel so much better once you reach those goals, as long as you have the right reasons why you're doing them.
And on that note, if you had to give, like, let's just say somebody came to you dealing with a lot of the same stuff you've dealt with early on, and you had to give them one piece of advice, what would that be?
Love yourself.
Love yourself. Yeah, it's so true. And we don't do it. No,
we don't. And the thing is that I loved somebody more than I loved my own self. And I get, like you said, once love comes into the picture, logic goes out. You see all these movies of these, this love that's never ending, never changing love. Yes, love is a very powerful thing, but you have to learn to love yourself, because God's greatest gift to you is his breath of life. So you have to love that, and you have to love yourself. You don't have to love yourself more than everybody else in the whole world, but you have to love yourself enough to know that you too are important.
Yeah. Humility is not thinking less of yourself.
Correct.
It's just thinking of yourself less often.
Yes.
It's people, like I read something the other day, and I love, like, it's been posted a million times, I love reading it every single time, is, when they say, would you talk to somebody else the way you talk to yourself?
Yes.
And when you actually think about that, you're like, no, actually I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I would not talk to any of my friends, like some of the things I say to myself, I wouldn't tell any of my friends that because I know how bad it hurt them. Mm-hmm. So if that's my thought process, why am I doing it to myself? Mm-hmm. And the power, I just had this conversation yesterday. The power of your story, and it's not the story you're projecting to other people, it's the power of the story you're telling yourself of who you are. Even if it's, something you're subconsciously doing and it's something you're just repeating yourself. Even if it's like, oh, well, I'll never be good at that. Well, yeah, if you keep telling yourself that, it's going to be true.
Confucius, he who says he can and he who says he can't are both usually right.
Yeah. And, that power of the story you keep telling yourself, it's unbelievable. One of the books I'm reading right now is called You Are the Placebo. It's about the power of the placebo effect.
Yes.
And the first half of the book is all the case studies through science of the placebo effect actually being proven right and how powerful it is. Those who think they're going to die, even though there's nothing wrong with them, die.
Yep.
And those who think they're going to beat whatever ailment they're dealing with, if they believe it's strong enough, they're going to beat it. And that's that story. And that's one of the things that I'm nerding out on right now is like that power of the brain over the body and how strong that is.
Yes.
And, a lot of people, they just get in these mindsets of just negativity and they start telling themselves this negative story and it just becomes who they are.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why you keep telling yourself that? Like, do you honestly believe that's who you are? No. Well, then quit telling yourself that. So love yourself. I agree. And I say it all the time. In order for you to spread love into the world, you must first love yourself. And that's one thing that I realized when I got out of my relationship was I couldn't make my fiance happy because I wasn't happy. I could do good things and I could do things for her to show her how much I cared for her. But at the end of the day, I wasn't going to make her happy because I was miserable. It just wasn't going to happen. You can't make someone else happy unless you're first happy with who you are. It's that, you can call it whatever you want to, energy, vibes, whatever. You radiate that. And yeah, you have to first love yourself before you can show that to the world. But the problem is it's such a hard process.
It is.
When you get into a negative place, getting out of a negative place to love yourself again, it takes a lot of introspective thought and dealing with issues and who you are that a lot of people don't like going down that road because it's a dark road.
It is.
It's a hard road. But it's 100% worth it in the end if you're willing to go through it.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's powerful if people will actually do that. So, in wrapping up, I want to absolutely thank you for coming down from Jackson to be on the podcast.
Of course.
And, she's fighting asthma right now. She's got a hip flexor injury that she's working through. She's struggling. So, I just want to thank you for toughening through all that.
Hey, the struggle's real, but I'm stronger.
Is definitely real. And I do want to acknowledge you, too. I want to acknowledge you for who you are. And I noticed it from the first day that I met you. You do have that loving spirit.
Thank you.
And you don't have to say anything. Like, it just comes across. And you probably haven't noticed, but I've watched you interact with a ton of people, and you're always smiling, always giving, always trying to help people out. And as a competitor, when you're in the gym, I fight this too. When you're in the gym, you want to get your workout in, and you want to stay in the zone.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when people come up and talk to you, you want to be nice to them.
Yeah.
And you want to be friendly to them. And I noticed you always giving back to people. And you do it with such a loving spirit. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Because me being a shy person, we would have never been friends unless you came up and talked to me.
Which is exactly what I did.
Exactly. So I just want to, acknowledge you for that and thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So competition in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
In Memphis.
Memphis at the Dexter Jackson Classic. It'll be my very first show as a fitness competitor. And so that's kind of like that new goal that I'm always talking about. I'm trying something new. The only reason I'm doing it is to prove to myself that I can. Yeah. And so just to see, it's new. I'm stepping out on stage. I don't care who's standing up there next to me because at the end of the day, I know how much work I went into this routine, how much pain went into this routine.
I witnessed that pain.
Yeah. So I know, I know what it took for me to get here. Mm-hmm. I'm proud of that. And just to be able to present it as flawlessly as I can, would just make me very, very happy. And at the end of the day, I'm proud of that.
Absolutely. So where can people go to follow your journey?
I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram. Facebook, just Anna Adams. Instagram or Snapchat, they're both the same. It's ANNA_ADAMS1106. It's my birthday, November 6th. You can follow me on Snapchat. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm on both. I'm also on Twitter, same thing. My journey is always going to be something positive. You will never hear me say anything negative. If I see negativity, I do confront it. I will never let anybody be rude. You will not be rude to me, to the people around me. I mean, I don't tolerate it.
Yeah.
Because it's just, there's no room for that. There's really not. If you want to be rude, go be rude to somebody else. But you sure as Lord living ain't going to do it to me. That's the countryside coming out, darling.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show today. And as always, to find out more, go to RobbyD'Angelo.com. The podcast will be up there as well as on iTunes. Check it out on there. Please like and subscribe. Leave us a comment. We'll be checking those and we'll get back to you. But until next time, remember, guys, the struggle is real.
But I am stronger.